The locals knew him only as Jason, the quiet mechanic who worked miracles on broken wheelchairs from his modest garage at the edge of town. His hands, calloused and stained with grease, moved with surprising grace as he rebuilt motors and reinforced frames that medical suppliers had declared beyond repair. No one suspected that those same hands signed billion-dollar contracts after midnight, or that the grease-stained jeans concealed the identity of Jason Matthews, founder of Pinnacle Technologies and one of the wealthiest men in North America. For 3 years, he had maintained his secret, living above his garage in a sparse apartment while his corporate empire ran without him. But when single mother Lily Wilson pushed her daughter's broken wheelchair through his door, Jason's carefully constructed facade began to crack. What started as another quiet act of kindness would soon force him to confront the truth he'd been hiding even from himself. Rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the metal roof of the garage as Jason Matthews closed the service bay door. Friday evenings were usually quiet in Millfield, especially during storms like this, when sensible people stayed home. He'd been about to shut down for the night when the security cameras showed movement at the entrance, a woman struggling to push a wheelchair through puddles that had formed in the cracked pavement. Jason hesitated only briefly before reopening the bay door. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and desperation. The woman was soaked, her dark hair plastered against her face, clothes clinging to her thin frame. The child in the wheelchair looked about 8 or 9, a yellow raincoat pulled up to shield her from the downpour, though it had clearly failed at its job. The wheelchair itself was in pitiful condition, one wheel bent at an awkward angle, the frame showing multiple amateur repair attempts. "I'm sorry," the woman said, water dripping from her chin. "The recreation center said you sometimes fix." "I know it's late, but..." "Come in," Jason interrupted, already moving to help guide the wheelchair over the small lip of the entrance. "Let's get you both dry." Inside, under the harsh fluorescent lights, their situation looked even more desperate. The woman's exhaustion was etched into the lines around her eyes, the girl's face revealed the stoic acceptance of someone too accustomed to disappointment. "I'm Lily Wilson," the woman said, pushing wet hair from her forehead. "This is my daughter, Mia." Jason nodded, grabbing clean shop towels from a nearby shelf. "Jason." "Just Jason." He handed them each a towel, then knelt beside the wheelchair, his practiced eyes assessing the damage. The chair was a basic model, at least 5 years old, with modifications that suggested it had been adjusted repeatedly as the child grew. The right wheel's axle housing had cracked, causing the wheel to cant inward. The control system looked worn, wires exposed in places where the protective coating had frayed. "What happened?" he asked, glancing up at Mia, addressing her directly rather than talking through her mother. Something in his approach made the girl's guarded expression soften slightly. "The wheel got stuck in a storm drain. Mom tried to pull it out, but then we heard something snap." Her voice was clear, articulate, with an undertone of frustration that spoke volumes. Lily's hand rested protectively on her daughter's shoulder. "We've been on a waiting list for a new chair for 11 months. Insurance won't approve another one until next year." Jason nodded, continuing his examination. His fingers traced the frame, feeling for structural weaknesses. Part of him, the part that ran a multi-billion-dollar medical technology corporation, recognized this model immediately. Pinnacle's competitors made it, cheaply constructed, designed to meet minimum requirements while maximizing profit margins. His company had been founded specifically to counter such approaches. Not that he could reveal any of that knowledge. "Can you fix it?" Lily asked, the hope in her voice thinly disguised behind attempted nonchalance. Jason stood, wiping his hands on his worn jeans. I can do better than fix it. I can improve it. He saw skepticism flash across Lily's face and added, no extra charge. Just the cost of parts. We can't afford much, she admitted, her voice dropping so Mia wouldn't hear. Let me worry about that, Jason said. His eyes caught sight of Lily's work uniform beneath her rain jacket, the logo of the local diner where he sometimes grabbed coffee. The pieces fell into place: single mother, service industry wages, a child with special needs. Insurance bureaucracy and medical bills that never ended. It was exactly the situation he'd been studying, living among the people his company's products were meant to serve, understanding their needs in a way corporate focus groups could never reveal. It'll take a few hours, he continued. There's a waiting area through that door with a couch. Bathrooms next to it. Make yourselves comfortable. Lily hesitated. We can come back tomorrow if... Mom, please, Mia interjected, her voice tied with barely contained emotion. I have practice tomorrow. Jason raised an eyebrow questioningly. Adaptive basketball, Mia explained, a flash of pride breaking through her reserve. I'm the team captain. Then we definitely need to get this fixed tonight, Jason said decisively. Can't have the captain missing practice. As he helped transfer Mia to a comfortable chair in the waiting area, Jason caught a glimpse of the calluses on Lily's hands, the worn edges of Mia's clothes, the careful way they navigated the world together. His chest tightened with something between admiration and shame. In his other life, he lived in a penthouse with views of the city skyline, had a personal chef, and owned a private jet. Here, he was just Jason the mechanic, living above his garage in a Spartan apartment, eating diner food and driving a 10-year-old pickup truck. The deception had begun 3 years ago, after a scathing article questioned whether tech billionaires like him were truly qualified to develop solutions for people whose daily struggles they couldn't possibly understand. The criticism had struck a nerve deeper than his board of directors realized. 1 month later, he had placed his CFO in charge of day-to-day operations, created a cover story about an extended sabbatical at a wellness retreat in New Zealand, and disappeared. Only his most trusted attorney knew where he had gone or why. Even his executive team believed he was meditating in seclusion, occasionally weighing in on major decisions via secure video conferences conducted from what they assumed was an oceanfront retreat. The truth that he was living in a small town, running a repair shop for mobility equipment would have shocked them all. But the knowledge he had gained, the insights into the real problems faced by people who used his company's products, had already transformed Pinnacle's design approach. Now, as he wheeled Mia's chair into his workshop area, Jason felt that familiar surge of purpose. This wasn't just about fixing a broken wheelchair. It was about understanding how to create something better. He glanced toward the waiting area, where Lily was helping Mia remove her wet outer clothing. In 3 years of his secret life, he had helped dozens of people, learned countless lessons about the reality of living with mobility challenges. But something about this particular mother and daughter made him feel as though he was only now seeing the full picture. Jason turned to his workbench, already mentally cataloging the improvements he could make to Mia's chair. Tonight, he wasn't a billionaire pretending to be a mechanic. He was simply a mechanic with an opportunity to make one child's life a little better. And somehow, that felt more meaningful than anything he had accomplished in his boardroom. Hours passed as Jason lost himself in the work, the familiar rhythm of problem-solving focusing his mind. He replaced the damaged axle with a custom machined part that would provide better stability. He rewired the control system, eliminating the worn connections that caused intermittent power loss. Most significantly, he adjusted the frame to better distribute weight and reduce pressure points, an innovation his company's R&D department was still perfecting for mass production. Occasionally, he glanced toward the waiting area. Lily had fallen asleep on the small couch, her body curled protectively even in rest. Mia had remained awake longer, watching him work with curious eyes until fatigue finally overcame her as well. Just after midnight, Jason wheeled the completed chair back into the main area of the garage. He hesitated before waking them, taking a moment to observe the finished product. The transformation went far beyond simple repair. He had essentially rebuilt the chair from the inside out, incorporating elements from designs that wouldn't hit the market for another year. If anyone with technical knowledge examined it closely, questions would inevitably arise about how a small-town mechanic had access to such advanced components. It was a risk, but one he was willing to take. The security of his charade versus the quality of a child's life wasn't even a question worth considering. "Lily," he called softly, approaching the couch. "It's finished." She woke immediately, the alertness of someone accustomed to responding to nighttime needs. Her eyes focused first on Mia, still sleeping, then on Jason, and finally on the wheelchair. As recognition dawned, she sat up straighter. Is that Mia's chair?" The disbelief in her voice was evident. Jason nodded, trying to suppress the pride he felt. "I made some improvements." Lily stood and approached the wheelchair slowly, running her hand along the frame. "It looks different." "The basics are the same," Jason explained, keeping his voice low to avoid waking Mia. "But I reinforced the structure, upgraded the control system, and adjusted the seating to prevent pressure sores." He demonstrated the improvements as he spoke: the smoother wheel action, the more responsive controls, the ergonomic adjustments designed specifically for a growing child. "This isn't just fixed," Lily said, shaking her head in amazement. How did you even do this? With parts from old wheelchairs?" The question touched dangerously close to the truth. Many of the components hadn't come from old wheelchairs at all, but from his private supply of prototype parts he kept in a locked storeroom, parts developed in Pinnacle's labs that most repair technicians wouldn't see for years. "I've been collecting specialized components for a while," he said carefully. "Sometimes suppliers send me samples to test." Lily's eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of suspicion flickering across her features. "Must be some very generous suppliers." Before Jason could formulate a response, Mia stirred, her eyes blinking open in the harsh garage lighting. "Is it done?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep. "See for yourself," Jason replied, grateful for the interruption. The transformation on Mia's face as she transferred into the rebuilt chair was worth any risk his deception might entail. Her initial caution gave way to wonder as she tested the controls, feeling the immediate response to her commands. The chair moved as if it were an extension of her body, requiring minimal effort to navigate the open area of the garage. "Mom, look," she exclaimed, executing a tight turn that would have been impossible with the previous configuration. "It's like it knows what I want it to do." Lily watched her daughter with tears forming in her eyes. "Jason, I don't know how to thank you." "No thanks necessary," he said automatically, the standard response he'd given dozens of times before. But the words felt hollow tonight, inappropriate for the magnitude of Mia's joy or the gratitude shining in Lily's eyes. "What do I owe you?" Lily asked, reaching for her purse with obvious reluctance, a woman preparing to face a bill she couldn't afford. "Nothing," Jason said firmly. Consider it my contribution to the team captain season. Lily's expression hardened slightly. We don't take charity. It's not charity, Jason countered, recognizing the pride that kept her standing straight despite exhaustion. It's an investment in Mia's future. Besides, I had most of these parts already. They were just waiting for the right chair. He could see her internal struggle, the need to provide for her daughter warring with the desire to maintain dignity. Finally, she nodded once, a compromise with herself. Then we'll find another way to repay you, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. As they prepared to leave, Mia spinning her chair in delighted circles by the door, Lily handed Jason a small card. The diner where I work. Come by tomorrow. Breakfast is on me, it's not much, but it's a start. Jason accepted the card, oddly touched by the gesture. In his other life, people sought his attention constantly, hoping to gain access to his wealth or influence. Here, a waitress offering free pancakes felt more genuine than any corporate networking dinner he'd ever attended. After they left, Jason locked up the garage and climbed the narrow stairs to his apartment. The space was intentionally Spartan, basic furniture, minimal personal effects, nothing that might reveal his true identity. His one concession to luxury was a high-end laptop hidden in a hollowed-out automotive manual on his bookshelf. He retrieved it now, entering the complex series of passwords that would access his secure private server. The screen filled with dozens of unread messages from his executive team, reports awaiting his review, decisions that had been deferred to his final judgment. Among them was an update on Pinnacle's newest pediatric mobility project, the very technology he had just incorporated into Mia's wheelchair. The report detailed manufacturing delays, concerns about cost-effectiveness, debates about market strategy. Jason closed the laptop without responding to any of the messages. The contrast between the corporate discussion about theoretical users and the very real child he'd just helped was too stark. For 3 years, he had maintained the separation between his two lives with careful discipline. Tonight, for the first time, the walls between those worlds felt dangerously thin. The Bell Valley Diner sat at the intersection of Main Street and Railroad Avenue, its neon sign buzzing intermittently in the morning light. Jason had driven past it hundreds of times during his years in Millfield, but had rarely ventured inside, preferring to minimize his interactions with locals to reduce the risk of his cover being compromised. Today, however, he found himself pushing through the glass door at precisely 7:30 a.m., the card Lily had given him tucked in his shirt pocket. The breakfast rush was in full swing, farmers in worn caps, office workers grabbing coffee before commuting to larger towns, retirees occupying the same booths they'd claimed for decades. Lily spotted him immediately, raising a hand in acknowledgement as she balanced a tray of plates. She looked different here, her hair pulled back neatly, movements efficient as she navigated between tables with practiced ease. There was a confidence to her in this environment that contrasted with the vulnerable woman he'd met last night. "Corner booth is open," she called over the din of conversation. "Coffee?" Jason nodded, making his way to the indicated booth. The vinyl seat was cracked with age, the tabletop bearing the scars of countless meals. He observed the diner's operations with new interest, watching Lily interact with customers, remembering names, asking about children, offering condolences for a recently deceased pet. This was a woman woven into the community's fabric, carrying its stories alongside her own. "Sorry about the wait," she said, appearing with a steaming mug of coffee. "Saturday mornings are always crazy." "No rush," Jason replied, surprised to find he meant it. His other life operated on precisely timed schedules, every minute accounted for, productivity always the primary concern. Here, watching the unhurried rhythm of small-town life felt almost therapeutic. Mia wanted to come thank you herself, but she had an early physical therapy session, Lily explained, filling his coffee cup. She barely slept last night, too excited about the chair. Her therapist just called me, completely confused about how she's suddenly showing improved upper body strength. Jason smiled, warming his hands around the mug. The new configuration requires less effort to operate. She's not fighting the equipment anymore. Lily studied him for a moment, her head tilted slightly. You know, Jason, I've been trying to figure you out since last night. He tensed involuntarily. Not much to figure out. I fix things. You do more than fix things, she countered. The recreation center director told me you've helped half the kids in the adaptive sports program. The senior center says you rebuilt their entire fleet of mobility scooters. All for free or at cost. Jason shifted uncomfortably. I enjoy the work. That's just it, Lily continued, leaning against the booth. You have skills that could earn you serious money in any medical equipment company. Instead, you're working out of a small garage in Millfield, charging next to nothing. Her eyes narrowed slightly. It doesn't add up. The conversation was veering too close to dangerous territory. Jason deflected with practiced ease. Not everyone measures success by their bank account. True, Lily acknowledged. But there's a difference between not prioritizing money and... She gestured vaguely. Whatever this is. Before Jason could respond, the cook called Lily's name, indicating an order was ready. She straightened, professional mask sliding back into place. Duty calls. The usual Saturday special is coming your way. On the house. As she walked away, Jason felt a familiar unease settling in his stomach. In 3 years, no one had questioned his presence in Millfield this directly. He'd cultivated the persona of a reclusive mechanic who preferred machines to people, and most respected his apparent desire for privacy. Lily Wilson, it seemed, was more observant than most. His phone vibrated in his pocket, his real phone, not the basic model he carried publicly. Only 2 people had this number, his attorney and his chief of security. Neither would contact him unless absolutely necessary. The message was from his attorney, merger announcement leaked early. Press requesting statements. Board needs your visible presence. Security concerns about extended absence. Please advise. Jason stared at the screen, the bustling diner suddenly feeling very far away from the corporate crisis unfolding in his other life. The merger had been in negotiation for months, Pinnacle acquiring a European manufacturer of advanced prosthetics, expanding their rehabilitation technology division. The deal represented years of strategic planning, billions in investment. And now, it needed the reassuring physical presence of its founder to maintain market confidence. Lily returned with a plate piled high with pancakes, eggs, and bacon. Best in the county, she said with pride, setting it before him. Though I might be biased. It looks amazing, Jason replied automatically, his mind still processing the implications of the message. Something in his tone must have betrayed his distraction. Lily paused, studying his face. Everything okay? Fine, he said, forcing a smile. Just remembered something I need to take care of at the garage. She nodded, though the skepticism in her eyes suggested she didn't believe him. I get off at 3 if you need any help. I'm pretty good with tools myself, had to be, with Mia's equipment always needing adjustments. The offer, so genuine in its simplicity, made the complexity of his situation feel suddenly overwhelming. Here was a woman who worked tirelessly to provide for her daughter, offering what little free time she had to help a virtual stranger. Meanwhile, he maintained an elaborate deception while his actual responsibilities to his company, his employees, his shareholders demanded attention he'd been withholding. "Thank you," he said finally. "But I'll manage." As he ate breakfast that he couldn't taste, Jason's mind raced through scenarios. He could return temporarily, make a public appearance, stabilize the situation, then retreat back to Millfield. But that would mean explaining his sudden disappearance to Lily and others who had come to rely on his services. It would mean disrupting the life he had built here, the purpose he had found. Or he could continue his absence, handling the crisis remotely as he had done with other corporate matters. But the board's patience was clearly wearing thin. How long before they initiated measures to declare him unfit for leadership? How long before they sent someone to physically locate him? The third option loomed largest in his mind. He could simply end the charade. Reveal his identity, return to his position, and find other ways to stay connected to the real-world applications of his company's technology. But that would mean leaving behind this community. It would mean Lily and Mia learning that he had deceived them, that their gratitude had been directed toward a fiction. As he finished his meal, Lily returned with a coffee pot. "Refill for the road." Jason nodded, suddenly unable to meet her eyes. She filled his cup, then hesitated, concern evident in her expression. "Jason, I don't mean to pry, but, are you sure everything's okay? You seem a million miles away." He looked up then, studying her face, the genuine concern, the direct gaze of someone who dealt with life's difficulties head-on. In that moment, the decision crystallized with unexpected clarity. "Actually," he said slowly, "there is something I need to tell you. But not here." The garage was quiet when they arrived, the morning sun casting long shadows through the windows. Jason had asked Lily to meet him after her shift, requesting that she bring Mia as well. The hours between had been spent in careful preparation, both practical and mental. They arrived promptly at 3:30, Mia wheeling in first, eager to show off how she had already personalized her rebuilt chair with basketball team stickers and colorful spoke decorations. "Jason, look what I added," she called, executing a perfect spin to display her modifications. "And guess what? Coach says I have better control than anyone on the team now." Jason smiled, genuinely pleased by her enthusiasm despite the weight of what was to come. "That's great, Mia. I'm glad it's working well for you." Lily entered behind her daughter, her expression curious but cautious. She had changed out of her diner uniform into jeans and a simple blouse, her hair loose around her shoulders. "So, what's this mysterious conversation we needed to have?" Jason gestured toward the small sitting area where they had waited the previous night. "Let's sit down. This might take a while." Once they were settled, Jason took a deep breath, searching for the right words to begin. How did one explain 3 years of deliberate deception? How could he make them understand his reasons without seeming manipulative or, worse, condescending? "First," he started, "I want you to know that everything I've done for you, for everyone in Millfield, has been genuine. The work, the repairs, my desire to help. None of that was fake." Lily's expression shifted to confusion. "Okay, but I never thought it was. What's going on?" Mia asked, her young face serious. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" The directness of her question almost made Jason smile. No, not trouble exactly. But I haven't been honest about who I am. He reached into his pocket and withdrew his real wallet, not the worn leather one he carried publicly, but the sleek designer version that contained his actual identification. He placed it on the table between them, then added his real phone and a small remote control. My name is Jason Matthews, he continued, but I'm not just a mechanic. Lily's eyes narrowed. Are you some kind of undercover cop or something? No, Jason replied, pressing a button on the remote. A panel in the wall slid open, revealing a hidden room filled with advanced computer equipment, prototype mobility devices, and screens displaying financial data and corporate communications. I'm the founder and CEO of Pinnacle Technologies. The silence that followed was absolute. Lily stared at the revealed room, then back at Jason, her expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and the first edges of anger. Pinnacle, the medical technology company, she finally asked, her voice strained. Jason nodded. The same. Mia wheeled closer to the hidden room, examining the prototypes with undisguised interest. You make wheelchairs? Like, for real? Among other things, Jason confirmed. Mobility devices, prosthetics, rehabilitation equipment, anything that helps people overcome physical limitations. You're a billionaire, Lily stated flatly. It wasn't a question. Yes. And you've been pretending to be a struggling mechanic in Millfield for, how long? 3 years. Lily stood abruptly, her hands clenched at her sides. Why? Some kind of social experiment? Slumming it with the regular folk for kicks? The accusation stung, though Jason had anticipated something similar. Nothing like that. I needed to really understand the people who use our products. Not through focus groups or market research, but by seeing their daily challenges firsthand. So we're what your research subjects. Lily's voice rose slightly. You've been watching us struggle, pretending to be one of us, while all this time you could have. Mom, Mia interrupted, her voice surprisingly calm. Look at this. She had wheeled to one of the display boards, where photographs and notes covered the wall. Images of people from town using various mobility devices, detailed observations about functionality issues, sketches of improvements based on real-world use. He's been helping people, Mia continued, studying the wall and learning from them. Jason approached cautiously, standing beside Mia. When I started Pinnacle, I wanted to create technology that actually improved lives. But the more successful we became, the further removed I felt from the people we were supposed to be helping. He gestured toward the board. Corporate executives in boardrooms making decisions about products they've never used, for people whose daily challenges they can't imagine. I couldn't be that kind of leader anymore. Lily hadn't moved from her position, arms now crossed defensively across her chest. So instead of, I don't know, volunteering at a hospital or something normal, you created an elaborate fake identity and moved to a small town. It sounds extreme when you put it that way, Jason admitted. But I needed more than occasional volunteer hours. I needed to immerse myself in the reality of it to see how people adapt, what frustrates them, what would actually make a difference. He turned to face her directly. Everything I've learned here has transformed our product development. The improvements I made to Mia's chair are being incorporated into our next generation of pediatric mobility devices. They'll help thousands of children. And all it cost was lying to an entire community, Lily replied, though some of the anger had faded from her voice. "Yes," Jason agreed simply. "That's the part I can't justify, not really. It's why I'm telling you now." "Why now?" Mia asked, still examining the prototypes. "And why us specifically?" The question, so perceptive from someone so young, caught Jason off guard. He considered his answer carefully. "A situation has arisen at Pinnacle that requires my presence, my real presence. I have to go back, at least temporarily." He looked at Lily. "And as for why I'm telling you, because after what happened with Mia's chair, continuing the deception felt wrong. Especially with you." The last words emerged more softly than he had intended, revealing a truth he hadn't fully acknowledged to himself. In 3 years of careful distance from the community, Lily and Mia had somehow breached his defenses in a single night. Lily's posture softened slightly. "So what happens now? You just disappear back to your real life, and we never see you again?" "That depends," Jason replied honestly. "On what you decide to do with this information. And on whether you'd be willing to continue being part of Pinnacle's development process officially this time, with proper compensation." "You want to hire us?" Lily asked incredulously. "I want your perspectives," Jason clarified. "Both of you. Mia as a primary user who can provide direct feedback on pediatric designs. You as a caregiver who understands the practical challenges of maintaining equipment, navigating insurance, adapting to changing needs." He hesitated, then added, "But even if you're not interested in that, I hope you'll consider keeping my identity private, at least until I can determine the best way to transition the garage and ensure continued service for the people who rely on it." Mia wheeled back to her mother's side, looking up at Lily's conflicted expression. "Mom, I think we should help. Look what he did for my chair. Imagine if all kids could have this." Lily placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, her gaze never leaving Jason's face. "You understand this is a lot to process, right? Finding out the local mechanic is actually a famous billionaire who's been conducting some kind of social research project." "I do," Jason acknowledged. "And you have every right to be angry about the deception." "I'm not angry, exactly," Lily said after a moment's consideration. I don't know what I am." "Confused? Surprised?" A hint of a wry smile touched her lips. "And maybe a little embarrassed about serving you diner pancakes this morning." The comment broke some of the tension, a small laugh escaping Jason despite the gravity of the situation. "They were excellent pancakes." Mia looked between them, then announced with the decisive clarity of youth, "I want to help make better wheelchairs. And I think you should forgive him, Mom. He did fix my chair for free." "It wasn't exactly free if he's a billionaire," Lily pointed out, though her tone had softened considerably. "Time is valuable regardless of bank account," Jason replied quietly. "Maybe even more so." Lily studied him for a long moment, as if seeing him properly for the first time. The man before her was physically identical to the mechanic she'd known, yet fundamentally transformed by the revelation of his true identity. She was recalibrating her entire perception, re-examining every interaction through this new lens. "I need time to think," she finally said. "This is a lot." Jason nodded. "Of course. Take all the time you need." He retrieved a business card from the hidden room, his real contact information, embossed with the Pinnacle logo. "When you're ready to talk again, you can reach me here." As they prepared to leave, Mia wheeled up to Jason, her expression serious. "Even if you're actually rich and important, You're still the guy who fixed my chair when nobody else would. That matters more than your bank account." The simple wisdom in her words struck Jason deeply. He knelt to her eye level, humbled by the child's capacity for acceptance. "Thank you, Mia. That means a lot to me." At the door, Lily paused, turning back with one final question. "All those people you helped in town, was that just research for your company?" Jason met her gaze steadily. "It started that way," he admitted. "But somewhere along the line, it became something more. It became real." As they departed, Jason watched through the window as they crossed the parking lot, Lily walking beside her daughter's smoothly rolling wheelchair. Whatever happened next, he knew with absolute certainty that his life had been changed by this encounter far more profoundly than either of them could imagine. The billionaire CEO had been transformed by the mechanic he had pretended to be and by the people who had believed in him when they thought he had nothing. 18 months later, Jason Matthews stood in the center of Pinnacle's newest facility, not in a gleaming corporate campus or upscale technology park, but in the renovated community center of Millfield. Around him, local residents mingled with corporate executives, medical professionals, and media representatives, all gathered for the grand opening of the Pinnacle Community Innovation Lab. The transformation of the past year and a half had been remarkable, both for the company and for Jason personally. His return to corporate leadership had initially generated headlines speculating about his mysterious absence, but the truth, carefully crafted to protect Millfield's privacy, had ultimately earned respect rather than criticism. The story of a CEO living incognito to better understand his users' needs resonated in an era increasingly critical of disconnected corporate leadership. More significantly, the insights gained during his time as a mechanic had revolutionized Pinnacle's approach to product development. The Matthews method, as it had become known internally, placed users and caregivers at the center of the design process from inception to final production. And now, that philosophy had a permanent home in the town where it all began. "Quite a change from your garage, isn't it?" Lily's voice came from behind him, familiar and warm. Jason turned to find her looking elegant and confident in her role as the lab's community engagement director. Their relationship had evolved through many stages over the past 18 months, from the initial wariness after his revelation, to professional collaboration, to a deepening personal connection that neither had anticipated but both had eventually embraced. "I miss the garage sometimes," Jason admitted with a smile. "Things were simpler then." "Simpler, maybe," Lily countered, "but not better. Look what you've created here." She gestured toward the center of the room, where Mia was demonstrating the latest pediatric mobility prototype to a group of children from the adaptive sports program. At 11, she had blossomed into a poised young advocate, her insights proving invaluable to Pinnacle's design team. The company had formalized her role as their youngest product tester, complete with an educational trust fund that would ensure her future educational opportunities. "Correction," Jason said softly. "Look what we've created." The Innovation Lab represented a new model for medical technology development, a place where engineers worked directly alongside the people who would use their products, where local community members received training in maintenance and customization, where feedback was immediate and implementation swift. Already, 3 breakthrough designs had emerged from this collaboration, each addressing needs that traditional R&D processes had overlooked. More importantly, the model was being replicated in other communities, creating a network of innovation hubs that kept Pinnacle connected to the reality of their users' lives. "Mr. Matthews." A voice interrupted their conversation. "They're ready for the ribbon cutting whenever you are." Jason nodded acknowledgement, then turned back to Lily. Ready for the spotlight, Director Wilson. She smiled, straightening his tie with familiar ease. As long as you promise no more secret identities. One reveal per relationship is my limit. Deal, Jason agreed, taking her hand as they walked toward the entrance where media cameras awaited. The ceremony itself was brief but meaningful. Jason, flanked by Lily and Mia, cut the ribbon while explaining the facility's purpose to the assembled reporters. Innovation doesn't just happen in corporate laboratories, he stated, his voice carrying conviction born of experience. It happens where people face real challenges and develop real solutions. This lab formalizes something I learned during my time living in Millfield, that the most important expertise isn't gained through advanced degrees, but through lived experience. As the formal proceedings concluded and guests explored the facility, Mayor Thompson approached Jason with a handshake that had grown warmer since learning his true identity. When you first came to town, I thought you were just an eccentric mechanic, the mayor admitted with a chuckle. Never imagined you'd transform Millfield into a center for medical innovation. Neither did I, Jason replied honestly. But that's the beauty of being open to unexpected possibilities. Later, as the crowd thinned and evening approached, Jason found himself in the lab's central workspace with Lily and Mia. Through the windows, the lights of Millfield twinkled in the gathering dusk, the same town he had chosen at random 3 years ago, now inextricably bound to his future. So, Lily said, perching on a workbench beside him, now that the big launch is complete, what's next for the great Jason Matthews? Another corporate acquisition? Space technology? Political aspirations? There was teasing in her tone, but genuine curiosity too. Despite their growing closeness, part of her still marveled at the scope of possibilities available to someone with his resources. Actually, Jason replied, reaching into his pocket, I was thinking of something more personal. He withdrew a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a ring not ostentatiously large or flashy, but uniquely designed with intertwining bands that represented their two very different worlds coming together. Lily's breath caught, her eyes widening as she registered what was happening. I've lived two completely different lives, Jason continued softly. And I've discovered that neither one was complete without the other or without you and Mia. Before he could continue, Mia wheeled closer, her expression serious. Did you ask me first? Because technically, I'm the one who has to live with you too. Jason laughed, the tension of the moment broken by her practical concern. As a matter of fact, I did. Last week at the basketball game, remember? When your mom went to get snacks. Mia nodded solemnly. Just checking. I said yes, by the way, she informed her mother. But it's your decision too, I guess. Lily shook her head, torn between laughter and tears. Well, thank you both for consulting on this major life decision. She turned back to Jason, her expression softening. From the moment you fixed Mia's chair, you've been rebuilding parts of our lives we didn't even realize were broken. So yes, of course yes. As Jason slipped the ring onto her finger, he marveled at the journey that had brought them to this point. He had begun his experiment seeking to understand the needs of people who used his company's products. Instead, he had discovered something far more valuable, the understanding that true innovation, like true connection, arises not from observation but from participation. The billionaire who had pretended to be a mechanic had found his most authentic self in the deception, and his most meaningful purpose in the lives he had touched. As Mia initiated a group hug, declaring them officially a family engineering team, Jason realized that he had indeed come full circle. He had set out to change how his company created technology, never imagining that the technology and the people it served would so profoundly change him. What began as a billionaire's experiment in understanding became a profound journey of transformation, revealing truths that transcend the specific circumstances of Jason's unusual choice. His story illuminates powerful lessons about authenticity, purpose, and connection in our modern world. First, true understanding requires immersion. Jason discovered that no amount of market research or focus groups could substitute for direct experience. When we step out of our comfortable bubbles and into the lived reality of others, we gain insights that change not just our perspective but our capacity to create meaningful solutions. Second, our identities are not defined by our wealth or titles but by our actions and intentions. As a supposedly struggling mechanic, Jason found a deeper fulfillment in directly helping people than he had ever experienced in corporate success. The value he created in those simple acts of repair often exceeded the impact of his billion-dollar decisions. Third, innovation flourishes at the intersection of different worlds. By bringing together the practical wisdom of users like Mia with the technical capabilities of Pinnacle's engineers, Jason created a model that transcended the limitations of either approach alone. Our greatest breakthroughs often occur when we bridge divides rather than reinforce them. Perhaps most significantly, this story reminds us that authenticity sometimes emerges in unexpected ways. Jason began in deception yet discovered his most genuine self through that very masquerade. In attempting to understand others, he ultimately came to understand himself not as a billionaire pretending to be ordinary, but as a human being connecting with other human beings in their shared struggle to overcome limitations. This story invites us to examine the artificial divisions in our own lives between professional and personal, between success and significance, between who we appear to be and who we truly are. What masks might you be wearing that both protect and limit you? What understanding might you gain by stepping outside your comfortable perspective? Take a moment now to consider someone whose experience differs fundamentally from your own, perhaps someone who uses products or services you provide, someone whose challenges you observe but haven't truly understood. How might you bridge that gap, not as an observer but as a participant in their reality? We urge you to share this video with someone whose perspective needs challenging, perhaps a leader disconnected from those they serve, or someone whose view of success has become narrowly defined by conventional metrics. In the comments below, tell us about a time when you gained unexpected insight by stepping outside your normal role or environment. Your story might inspire others to undertake their own journeys of discovery. Finally, if this narrative resonated with you, subscribe to our channel for more transformative stories that challenge us to see beyond appearances and connect with the authentic humanity in ourselves and others. Remember, sometimes the greatest distance we travel is not between physical locations, but between different ways of seeing the world and ourselves within it.